Hi, beautiful people, and welcome to Her Blueprints podcast, where we share stories from women engineering tomorrow. And today, I know I'm always saying this, but all my guests are special, but today it's extra special. I've got Anno, and she's been such an inspiration for me. She's literally gold. I work with her, and I'm so excited to hear her story because I don't think I've had it in this version before. And I'm just really looking forward to it. I'm going to let her introduce herself, but just so you know, this is the Anno I'm always talking about to all my friends. Anno this, Anno that, yeah, this is her. And Anno, welcome, and thank you so much for honoring the invite.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
Yeah, you can tell us a bit about yourself. You can start wherever.
Okay, well, I'm a senior engineer with Engeny. I'm Brisbane born and raised, which is kind of boring. And I went to QUT at Gardens Point there. And I currently work in the mine closure and site remediation team at Engeny with you.
Awesome. Yeah, I've got a great team at work, by the way. And I keep talking about how I feel like it's a very supportive workplace, which is very different from a lot of workplaces that I've been in. So that's nice. We can start from where you think your story starts, or what you think drew you to engineering in the first place.
Yeah, okay. I was thinking about this last night, as you would have seen in my LinkedIn post, and I started putting notes together about, I think, last week or so against this. It was a great time to reflect and be like, oh, where did I start off? So I think I originally was in school. I loved science. I grew up watching documentaries, running around outside, playing with bugs, animal. I always had pets. I had lots of pets. So I was always drawn to science, and I really enjoyed science at school. But I come from a family of small business owners or business owners. So I thought, okay, I'll be in business. I'll be an accountant. And so that's the path I was heading towards, really. And in high school, you put your QTAC preferences down. And I think I had accountant, landscape architect, and florist. So really random selection. And it wasn't until I was in year 10 or so about 15, that I was talking to my cousin, and he at the time was a geotechnical engineer, and he was telling me, the industry needs more women, and he asked me about why I wanted to be an accountant, and I thought that I just thought I could work in any kind of business and I could go wherever with it. And he was like, you can work on all these great projects if you're an engineer and do all this stuff. So he's the one that really actually inspired me to become an engineer. I figured, he was like, if you're good at maths and science, then you'll probably be pretty good at it. And at the time, the coal seam gas industry was kicking off in the Western Downs region of Queensland. And my family has a cattle property. And so me and my siblings and my cousins are the fourth generation to have that. And I saw, in the news, landholders struggling to understand or come to terms with the impact that CSG was having on water in particular, groundwater resources they use for cropping and their cattle. And I thought, oh, cool. Well, I'm really, I like science. And again, watching documentaries, I like communicating technical topics to people who might not be in that field. So I thought, cool, I'll go into CSG and liaise with landholders and try to communicate or try to understand what's going on and help them. And funnily enough, I didn't know that there was all the other types of engineering before I went in. I thought there was just all civil engineers, that we all built bridges and buildings and that. And I guess I chose the environmental part because I always loved the natural world.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned something about QTAC. What's that? What does that mean?
I think at the time, I think it's like the Queensland Tertiary Application something. You know, when once you're in year 11 and 12, you can put down your preferences of what you like, what you might like to study. So yeah, I think that was like a preliminary one to talk to a careers counsellor about at school. It was very loose. It wasn't set in stone. And then when I finally did set myself on engineering, then you put your preferences of, you know, which course, which unis you want to do. So I'd never been to UQ, so I didn't know how to get there. And so I'd been to QUT, and I knew how to get there, and it was close to home. So I put that down as my first preference.
Talk to me a bit more about what CSG does.
Well, I guess at the time it was so coal seam gas. So it involves a lot of drilling down into the gas, or the coal seam rather. And out in Queensland, that coal seam is one of the water bearing. You know, it's an aquifer. It's one of the main aquifers out in that region. So essentially what you're doing is you're going, and, you know, coal naturally is I don't know if porous is the right technical term, but, you know, there's a lot of openings, and the nature of it is that there's gas held up in the seam as well as water. So the drilling is to, you know, you drill a well down into the coal seam, and then you extract the water and gas mixture, and then you, through some other engineering means, one that I'm not familiar with, you extract that gas from the water, and you use it. I think they liquefy it at some point, maybe. But I did at the time I knew someone who worked for a civil contractor that was helping build the pipelines, so the water trunk lines and the gas pipelines from out in Dolby, Chinchilla, all the way to Gladstone. So I got to go out on site for a little bit of that and see how things were constructed a little bit. But and there was a lot of uncertainty from the landholders with, you know, because to get the gas you had to extract a lot of the water too. So when you're taking water out of an aquifer, it has impacts upstream and downstream, or downgradient of that.
I'm asking about it because I don't know, or I don't know if people realize how much mining does, what it does to the environment, or like a lot of the consequences, like you mentioned, downstream, upstream, and how when they are pulling out all these things, they end up using just a small fraction of it. And you're like, what are they doing with the rest? And what is it doing to the environment? And what's happening after that, and stuff like that. So I can relate to the desire to I guess think about sustainability in the future as well, because that's something that I'm also very interested in and keen on. And just helping landholders have, like what you said. And thanks for the LinkedIn post, by the way. That was awesome.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and you're the only one that's done that so
far.
Oh, really? So I was like, see, no wonder I like her.
I just wanted to post about the big truck. Yeah. But it's funny because I remember taking that photo with the excavator. That was my that was the job that I was talking about. And I was like, whoa, this excavator's so big. But, you know, since then I've seen a lot more, you know, crazy stuff and bits of machinery. So that's good.
Yeah. We can talk a bit about accomplishments and milestones that you've had in your career, and things that have stood out for you.
Accomplishments. Well, I guess when I went to uni, one of the first ones that I was quite proud of was QUT was running a Women in Engineering scholarship. And so to apply for that, you just had to, it was like $3,000 over 2 semesters or something like that. So nothing crazy. I mean, but back then that was awesome. That was, you know, textbooks. We still used textbooks back then. Not that it was that long ago, but you know what I mean? Or like a laptop or something new. And yeah, I applied for that. And I remember in my application, I just, you know, I said, you know, I'm not an OP at the time, instead of doing when I went through school, it was this thing, Queensland students got an overall position instead of an ATAR, as with Queensland now and other states. So yeah, my application, I said, I'm not an OP1 student. I'm not like a, super academic or whatever, but I think I'm pretty well-rounded, and kind of put some examples as to why I thought that was the case. And then I ended up winning it. So there was me and a couple other ladies from across different schools, backgrounds, etc. And some of them I'm still quite close with now. And they're all like excellent, like really inspiring women. So yeah, that was one of my first accomplishments, I suppose, that I was quite proud of. And I guess getting my first job with the contracting company back then was a good experience as well. I didn't really spend too much time doing, engineering work. I got to see drawings and understand, trying to mobilise equipment and things like that to site, and more like, I guess, project engineering portions of it. But, I was very green, so I didn't know what was going on. I remember driving around site and people using these radios and calling something a rubber ducky. And I'm like, what is a rubber ducky?
What is a rubber ducky?
A rubber ducky is an excavator on with wheels instead of tracks. But it was a great learning experience. I remember, so they did a 3-week on, 1 week off roster. And so on my uni holidays, I got to go out there for one swing. And yeah, it was halfway between Dalby and Chinchilla, this camp. And I remember catching the bus there, stopping off in like Kingaroy or Kilcoy rather, having a toilet break, knowing no one on the bus. Like, I was just out of my comfort zone for sure, because I'm such a homebody. And I remember driving into the camp, so like, a bit like a mining camp, but more temporary, this one. But it was still very large, all these long demountable buildings everywhere. And I had no phone reception. And so then I was like, how am I meant to meet these people that I'm meant to meet up with them? I'd never seen them in my life. I'd seen one in the office, and I remember him getting really cranky over something, and he just kind of stormed off, and I was like, well, that man was cranky. He actually turned out to be a very lovely man, and a lot of the people that worked on this job were Irish, so that was really fun. I can really understand Irish accents now.
Yeah, I don't think I do.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, the really thick ones, I can like that. But yeah, I remember getting all my PPE for the first time, and it's bright yellow. My boots have not a scratch on them. I had no idea what to do. I didn't know what time we started. Like, I get into my room, and I was in a block of where some of the hospitality staff were working. So I was trying to get to sleep, and I could hear these people outside my room, but they had a different, set of shifts to me. And anyway, I got moved out of that room because, that was disrupting my sleep. But I remember walking in the first night to the mess, and I didn't know which door to go in. Anyway, I went into this one door, and I walked in, and literally I feel like every head in the room turned towards me to look at me. And there were hardly any women there. I can't remember. There were probably 5 that I could remember. And also one of the moments that I think about often then as well was coming back to the accommodation one afternoon, and there were sanitary bins outside every single room. And there's hundreds of people on site, and there were sanitary bins outside of every single room. So we just, some people took them in, male, female, doesn't matter, and others just, left them outside. But I thought, oh, what a funny, a funny oversight. I left that job. I tutored at uni for a little while, which was really nice. My students always thought that I, was a straight 7 student, and they were always like, oh, you must be so smart. And I said, no, I'm pretty average. I think I'm just good at being able to convey. If you don't get it if if I try to explain something in one way, if you don't get it, then I'll be able to explain it a second way, maybe a third way, and maybe a fourth way if you're lucky. But so that was really good, and I met some really cool students and lifelong friends and colleagues, I suppose. And then my first job, it's funny because I wanted to get into CSG, but by the time I'd finished uni, it was really hard to get a job as an engineer. And I think a lot of people left the industry altogether. And I needed undergrad experience for my degree, so I went to work with, I applied for an undergrad role at Golder Associates, which is now part of WSP, as a geotechnical engineer. And I was doing geotech subjects at the time, and I really enjoyed that aspect. And lo and behold, I got the job. But I think it was because I really tailored my cover letter to what they did. And I called them to make sure that they'd got my application. So I think that helped as well. And I got to talk directly to my future manager. But yeah, again, it was who I knew at the time. I got my undergraduate role through someone I knew. And the same with this. I applied formally, but I'd put in my cover letter. I met someone through my dad's work, the wife of a colleague who was an engineer. And he was telling me about, I was saying that I was interested in geotech, and he's like, oh, I've got a good friend who works at Golder Associates. They're about to do work on the second Toowoomba Range crossing. And I was like, whoa, that'd be so cool. So I put that in my cover letter. And yeah, ended up landing the job. And one of my uni friends applied for the same job too, and I got it. And I didn't have the heart to tell him that I'd got it when I did, because it was so hard to get a job.
Yeah.
Very hard, very hard. And I guess at that time I also had to battle the whole, did I get it because I was a woman, or did I get it because of my merits? So, other accomplishments. I mean, I feel like when you're young, they're in short succession, and as you get older, they're a bit further apart. But getting chartered, I suppose, 2 or so years ago, and then my registration was good. And I think just also feeling comfortable in my own skin and comfortable in my abilities is also a good accomplishment, because I think I lacked confidence for a little while, and still do at times. But yeah, I'm starting to realise that the people who, the best engineers are the ones that admit they don't know everything. And sometimes I guess egos can get in the way of people. But I think women are really good at being open and honest in conversations. And I've gone from being the only woman in the room or on site to one of many. So that's good. I feel more comfortable with that.
That's awesome. You've talked about the best engineers being the ones that I've forgotten what exactly you said, but about the best engineers being the ones that admit that they don't know everything. And from you being the only woman in the room, and then it also does sound like all these things that you've been able to do, it's been you constantly pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. And where do you think that comes from, or what do you think pushes you to, maybe I don't feel that confident, but I'm going to go ahead and just give it a try, give it a chance, and maybe do it anyway?
I guess the people around me are what I get my inspiration from as well. I think I've been really lucky to have mentors and managers that support me, and they say that you should find people that talk about you when you're not in the room, and offer you up for those opportunities that you think that you might want or like. So the same way that I guess you look up to me is the same way I look up to people like Travis. But really finding those champions of you, and I've found them in managers, in colleagues, and I have to tell myself sometimes that I can do it, but I'm only relaying things that they've told me, really. And I remember once telling Travis, I was like, you have to tell me I can do it because I won't tell myself.
We all need that reminder.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, LinkedIn's great. There's a lot of women who share their stories and things online, and you kind of go, okay, well, I'm not crazy. Everyone sort of feels this way.
Yeah.
And I think just with experience and diversity of experiences as well, I've kind of been able to just work, it's just that, okay, no one knows what they're really doing, and it's about finding, multiple solutions or just working through things. So that's what engineers do. I mean, everyone says that we're problem solvers, but I think sometimes we're problem finders. So we often find the problems more so than always providing solutions to them. I don't know if that answers the question.
That does. And I think also like you mentioned, like your wealth of experience, like you're chartered, you've got your APQ, the Engineers Australia membership. Yeah, all those are like, I mean, I got those things. I can, I can get more things. Are there any specific projects that you look back on and you're like, oh my God, I'm really like proud of that? Any key stuff that you've worked on and you're like, yeah, that was awesome, or that was out of this world?
I think it's and this might be a bit left field in terms of, I just forgot that it was one of like a challenge in my career was initially traveling quite a bit and not being able to have routine, not having routine or being able to commit to weekly sports or whatever. But looking back, it was a really love-hate relationship with travel. So as a geotech engineer, I am doing site investigations. I got to go to some cool sites. And so I was only I was only a very small, part of some of these big projects like WestConnex, a tunnelling project in Sydney. And then there was a tunnelling project in Melbourne as well. But in Sydney, this WestConnex, I remember I was doing some geophysics work, and where the tunnel entrance was an old landfill site. So that was cool. Like, it was kind of smelly, but they had like a fragrance that they'd spray every couple of hours. And that, that's just in the middle of Sydney, right? Like, it's such a booming city, and to have all this construction going on was really cool. I also got to travel to Olympic Dam, which is down in South Australia. That's BHP's copper and uranium mine. And I got to see the smelter, I got to see the refinery, and the concrete batching plant. The concrete batching plant was the most boring out of them. But and so that's all underground too. And so that's in like the the air basin, near the Cooper Basin. Really different landscape. If you look at it, I don't know where that is. If you look at it on aerial imagery, it's awesome, because when you get there and you fly over the area, it's like looking at the map. It's just this really interesting, like, I think it's Channel Country. I'm not really sure. Just a completely different landscape, and I guess a desert. And there's all the salt lakes and everything out there. And so I used to have to fly to Sydney, pick up this equipment, fly from Sydney to Adelaide, and then get a chartered flight from Adelaide out to Roxby Downs, which is the town that is near Olympic Dam. And I got stuck. I didn't get stuck there. I couldn't get a flight back until 2 days later, and what I needed to do only took a day. So I said to my manager, I was like, I'm going to go hire a car and drive to Lake Eyre. It was about a 3-hour drive. Is that okay? And he said, yeah, sure, just make sure you check in and, let us know what time you think you're going to be back and all that kind of stuff. So, I got to see Lake Eyre, which was cool, Lake Eyre South, but just amazing driving out there. Everything's dead flat. And, it was quite boring, to be honest, because it's just, the landscape didn't change, but that's what made it beautiful at the same time. And I was like, where's this damn lake? And it's a salt lake. But turns out I'd been looking at it on the horizon for like half an hour because it was just this little white strip on the horizon.
Yeah.
So they're the things I think about. I think about the travel that I did and some of the interesting little places that I saw. I guess in terms of when I've been more office-based or like, you know, there's some, when I worked for the Department of Resources in their abandoned mines team, I did some work in Charters Towers to try to restore, they were building a miners' memorial. And we were trying to make safe some old gold mining shafts, and typically they'd just been fenced off, which, you know, wasn't a huge deterrent to rowdy teenagers, but still very unsafe. You know, I don't know how deep these holes in the ground were. They're kind of Indiana Jonesy. But one of these shafts was quite close to where they were doing the miners' memorial. Stevie was close to where they were doing this miners' memorial. And so I was like, well, we've got these funds to do some, you know, make safe works. Why don't we preserve some of the history? Because a lot of the locals in these areas where there's historic mine disturbance and shafts like this, they really want to preserve that history because it's part of their heritage. So I was like, okay, well, let's meet with the council and see if we can incorporate, you know, what we're doing into this miners' memorial, or make it something that people can come and see. They're coming to see it anyway and breaking through our fences. You know, why don't we make it a bit more exciting? Yeah. And safe for them to come see it. So yeah, I did that, and I did all the planning, and you know, hired or engaged a contractor, a structural engineering contractor, to design, you know, a roof structure and, you know, a viewing platform and like a glass or perspex cover. And I didn't get to see it happen, but my colleagues, when I joined Engeny, they once it was constructed, they sent me some photos of what it was, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. Yeah. And you know, I think in the government especially, people talk about lots of red tape. I didn't see it. You know, I think if you really want to try to achieve something, you've just got to find, you know, what are the barriers and see whether you can overcome them. So, yeah, I was really proud of that. And then 2 years ago, when I helped I did up a closure plan, which included a bunch of studies, you know, landform design, flood modelling, all those kind of things for the Carmichael coal mine. So I think I put a lot of pressure on myself because, you know, as you know, Bravis or Adani aren't too well liked in the community, but so I thought, well, here's a closure plan that's going to be heavily scrutinised. But yeah, I look back on that document sometimes and I'm like, wow, this is awesome.
Yeah. Talk to us a bit about what a closure plan is and what it's for.
They differ across, in Australia, it's different from state to state. Typically, I guess we've seen the emergence of, you know, voluntary closure plans over the last couple of years to align with like the International Council on Mining and Metallurgy's principles or views on mine closure and this whole, I guess, conversation around sustainability and post-mining land uses. And I guess prior to that, you know, the voluntary closure plans were in Queensland. I guess my examples will be very Queensland based because that's, you know, my experience. But in Queensland, your license had a set of rehabilitation goals or criteria, and they weren't very prescriptive. And, you know, some of the age of some of these mining or mines means that, you know, their licenses were issued prior to, you know, the Environmental Protection Act being enforced and these modern kind of or modern understanding of what good looks like in terms of rehabilitation and closure. But a closure plan in Queensland, the legislation changed, or there was a bunch of mining reforms in 2018 And so now, instead of having just a set of kind of fluffy requirements in your environmental authority or your license to operate, you now have to have a set of closure milestones, and then you have to have this schedule that says, I will complete this milestone and achieve this closure outcome by this time on this amount of land. And so that's kind of the outcome of what a closure plan does. And the closure plan is really just demonstrating your understanding of all the systems at play in mining, the impact that mining's had, and then your predicted impact post-closure and how you're going to mitigate that impact. So, we think about, I guess, coming full circle again, back to CSG, what happens once we stop, we understand what happens while we extract water. We're monitoring groundwater to make sure our levels don't drop below a prescribed level that the regulator says. But what happens to, before we even do that, we need to know what was it before we started, what were the conditions before we started making this impact? And when we stop the activity that's causing the impact, will it recover back to the baseline, or will it continue to impact? And is that acceptable? The closure plans can be as big or as little as you want them to be. And I quite like the Queensland, the PRC, Progressive Rehab and Closure Plan framework, and it makes logical sense to me. And I've seen some in Western Australia as well, but they just include so much information. And when you talk about, we're talking about operations that span over 50 plus years, so it's hard to keep track of all the data and understand what's going on. And sometimes it's hard to understand what, people might make promises to landholders that they can't keep. So these closure plans try to capture all that, and they're just a planning tool, I think.
Before I joined Engeny, I didn't know anything about mine closure. And it's actually something that I had really never heard of. And we don't have things like that in Uganda. So it was an interesting intersection between civil and environmental, but also just the realization that, 50 years down the road, if you haven't thought about what the end is going to look like, then you're going to have like so many issues at the end and stuff like that. You talked a bit about site, and you mentioned the thing about the sanitary bins and just acknowledging how sometimes people overlook things like that. I have been out to a site and gone into a toilet, and I'm on my period, and I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to do? Carry this back to my bag or something?
I know that. Portaloo, in a portaloos don't have them. I'm always like, what do I do?
Talk to us a bit about what your experiences on site have been like, or even just as a woman in engineering in general.
I found that people are always like, it must be hard being in a male-dominated industry. But I sometimes think that it would be harder being in, law or, professional services, like a business or whatever, where some of those biases might be more subconscious, I think. And I guess maybe those industries are next in line for the change we've seen in engineering. But I guess engineering and construction, everyone shined a light on the fact that there were low numbers of women. And how can we make it more appealing for women? And, I think we're very quick to call out, behaviour or procedures or anything that's in place that might discriminate against women or make it harder for women to be in that job. I've found that when I was younger, going to site, and I guess my strength at the time was, I was willing to give anything a shot, and I worked on a lot of road projects, road upgrades. And I would, I was quite good at, being a safe driver, because oftentimes you have like a gate entry, and you have to have your two-way on, and if you miss the gate, that's fine. Just fine. You might have to take 20 minutes to go around and turn around and get back there again, but at least you've done it safely. So I think that that aspect of it I was quite good at, and that's why I got sent on a lot of these jobs. But when I would get to site, it was actually really nice. Like, I would have, most of the, sometimes you're standing there at pre-start, and I'm standing there with like my really, trying to stand up straight, really like strong stance, just being like, yep, I'm one of the boys, like, it's fine. But all the people I came across were really lovely. Everyone was really quick to help me. Everyone was really quick to give up information, share something about themselves, befriend me, ask me if I was okay, ask me if I needed help with anything. They were really lovely. And I actually think it would have been harder for young male engineers to come on to that role, because I think that some of them, and these are always generalizations, but I think some of the men, see these male engineers come out of uni, and, they think that they've got this attitude of like, I know everything and yada, yada, yada. When in actual fact, some of the tradesmen and workers, know a lot about their trade, obviously. So whether or not it was just my attitude and openness to trying to learn and understand what they did, that they appreciated and respected that. But yeah, I could see it with my own eyes, some of these younger site engineers, males, that had a bit of a hard time like getting this rapport with these men, whereas I kind of had it already. They were already really willing. So yeah, being that was good. Although I've had a handful of like unpleasant experiences, I suppose, and they're things now that I would have called out. I would call out now. And I'm very happy to call out. But there was one instance where I was on this job, the Gold Coast Light Rail, actually. There's a bridge that goes nowhere, and then we made it go somewhere with the light rail. I can't remember what suburb it was in. Anyway, we were going back to the nest, so we were jumping in the cars and going back to the demountable to have some lunch in the air conditioning. And so there was 5 of us, and so I just sat in the middle of the back seat, because I was smaller than all these British tradies. And one of the guy in the front seat made a joke about like being like sitting on his lap instead. I was like, I said, I'll go in the middle. I'm like used to going in the middle. And then he said, well, you could sit on my lap, and everyone laughed. And I kind of laughed along, like, and then I was like, only years later, where I was like, And a lot of them would share, a lot of them worked away from their families quite often too, and so they'd often say like, oh yeah, my kids like really miss me, or like it's heartbreaking, because you have a lot of time to talk about things when there's stuff going on outside. And so like I made really good friends, but now you can kind of discern between the men that maybe aren't as aware of like the experience or the challenges you might face as a woman, versus the men who kind of see you and go, oh, imagine if that was my daughter or my sister. This is how I'd want them to be treated. So there's just been other times where I've had to, it's funny working on those kind of jobs where there's portaloos everywhere, and then the men still complain about the state of the portaloos, and I'm like, I used to go to remote areas and have to find a tree to go behind, because I was time poor. But back then I was on the pill, so I kind of just skipped my periods all the time. Whereas now I'm kind of like, I've got to make time to have toilet breaks and things, and that extends to males and females. You never know what someone might be going through. In terms of health.
When I think about my experiences, like if I compare it to like when I was back home in Uganda, I find that the work environment here is a lot more professional and a lot more welcoming. And it's kind of heartbreaking for me, but it's also just interesting to be grateful for the experience of being surrounded by people always willing to help. I remember the first time that I went out to a site, and I was so scared because I've had quite horrific experiences like back home from like the guys on site and stuff, and it was completely different. And I was like, wow, it's fun being a woman in engineering here. And just noticing that difference and acknowledging it. What is something that you wish you knew at the start of your career?
I think it's hard because I don't know now. Maybe that like sometimes it's okay not to know everything.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we can be, or the right people will come along and you'll feel. Sometimes maybe something like it'll feel like you'll feel comfortable.
Yeah.
You will feel comfortable, and you're like the imposter syndrome and all those thoughts, start to get less and less. Yeah. Is there anything that you like? Is there something that you wish you knew
earlier,
or that you want to find out sooner?
I think when you're in school, they bombard you with so much information, and it's not like you necessarily use all of it. So I think if I had gotten a heads up that, this is just kind of teaching you how to learn stuff or how to know stuff, and that would have been nice, because we ended up stressing out about a lot more things, like when it really wasn't that serious. Like, get the grades to like pass, but it's not that deep. And you're not going to need that specific equation forever.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, I think with that said, I think the intent behind, because I was always quite calm at uni. I feel like I didn't know stress until I started working, and maybe I didn't know real stress until maybe a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But
I keep hearing that, and it's kind of scary.
Yeah. I remember telling my old manager, I was like, I can't wait to be busy, because sometimes I'd be not very busy, and I'd be like, I can't wait to be really busy, and like people calling me and emails and things to answer. And he was like, you're going to regret saying that. And I think about that a lot lately.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, maybe it would be nice to have a bit less responsibility. But I think knowing the intent, and when I used to tutor high school students, if they were tossing up between the two different maths, whether the simpler maths or the more algebra and calculus type maths, and I think seeing that, I kind of realised being part of hiring people now and seeing how people work in a team and all that kind of stuff. It's not really about, you can teach skills, you can't teach attitude.
Yeah.
And, again, at uni, I was quite calm. I didn't go to uni, I didn't go to the campus before my exams, because everyone else would freak me out, because they'd be like, oh, did you learn this? Did you learn this? And I was like, well, the university isn't setting us up to fail, although it may feel like it sometimes. They've if you think about it, you've got 13 weeks to learn a specific set of content. If you've absorbed that and you think you've got a good working knowledge of it, you're probably okay. And the intent behind it is still there. It's not. Kind of understanding that, or like the outcome of whatever you apply yourself to, is what really matters. So like, teaching people maths or like algebra, they might like to just learn a formula and not want to know how to rearrange it to make life easier for themselves, in my opinion. They might just want to learn a set of equations and go, yep, that's it, that'll sort me. And I think for nurses that works, with medications and things like that. Whereas engineers, it's kind of like, okay, well, what if this changes, or what if that changes, and I have to work something out, or like what happens if I change this ever so slightly, and you can really use it as a tool to. So it's like, I guess the outcome or the intent of algebra is that so you have this tool set to be able to approach multiple problems, and like if you can just keep at it, then that's.
So you play football.
Yes.
Which is something that I'm just like, oh, she's a very cool person. Yeah, like actual league football, guys. And let's talk a bit about just work and just like balancing other things as well. Because like I did play team sports in high school, and it influenced certain aspects of my character and things like that. And talk to us a bit about how football is important to you, and how you just try and make that time, or try and make sure that work is not overwhelming or just shadowing all your other life interests.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's been hard this year actually, because I feel like football overshadows everything else sometimes. Okay. And maybe that's because I'm over 30 now, and my body can't take it as well. But I'm playing at the highest level that I've ever played, which is also an achievement I'm quite proud of. And something that I have to have a serious conversation with myself about in terms of whether I want to continue to try to play at this level, because it's quite a commitment. But I think, 100% as well, that it shapes you as a person, and it's a really good trait that I look for in other people. And in the past couple of years, especially because the league that I play in is run like a, semi-professionally. My sister and my brother-in-law laugh at me for saying I'm a semi-professional football player. So I have coaching staff and a manager and all that kind of stuff, and I have to tell them when I'm away for games or training. I actually haven't missed a game this year. I only missed my last one because of my perforated eardrum. But it's much better. Yeah, I'm actually not sleeping as well because I can hear better. Isn't that funny? Yeah, I wore earplugs last night in an attempt to get better sleep, but it didn't work. But yeah, it's funny being in this setting with a management team essentially, and a lot of younger girls as well. And again, it's a bit like my career. I'm now seeing, they've got all these opportunities to progress as players and improve their skills, whereas I didn't have any of that when I was at uni or growing up. Like I had quite a good team as a teenager, but then we all kind of dropped off. There wasn't that support or funding available through clubs for women's football, whereas now, I feel weird. We've got a physio at our games who straps our injuries and makes sure that we're ready to play and all that. But it's funny, so that all the issues that arise from this team environment with different ages of people, different commitment levels, some of the issues that crop up are so similar to the workplace. So a couple of years ago I had this coach that would not give me feedback and dropped me from our first team. And I said, what am I doing? What have I stopped doing, or what am I not doing that you need me to do to be part of my team again? And he never gave me the feedback. And he had his way of coaching, and out of all the leadership training that I've done and all the good leaders that I've seen in my life, I was like, you are not a good leader. You don't, And whereas my coach now is amazing. He gets angry at you, but he's only angry at you because he knows you can do better, and he believes in you, and he's really your best advocate, really.
And he tells you what to do better.
Yeah, he tells you what to do better. He's which is my first touch. My first touch is really bad.
I'm not sure what that is.
Literally, like if someone passes me the ball and I touch it, my first touch, like sometimes it'll go too far away from me and I lose control quite easily. But I argue that it's because usually when I'm playing and receiving the ball, I'm already running. So I'm kind of like, but yeah, I've gotten a bit better.
How do you balance work?
I guess it's, like, I think when I get stressed, my body will often tell me before I like realise it in my brain. So, you know, I lose my appetite, my skin will be bad, I can, you know, start sleeping poorly. So I think just being open about the struggles you're going through. For a long time I felt bad because I was like, oh, I don't have kids, I don't have a family, I don't have anything significant going on that should mean that I have to decrease my work hours or something like that. But, you know, everyone's different. It's all relative.
I think all the things we are doing are significant.
Yeah.
To downplay people with families and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. And I think, you know, sometimes I feel bad that because I do, you know, I only do a 4-day week technically now at Engeny. You know, sometimes I feel bad. I'm like, oh, I could work way more. But then I go to the dog park in the morning and go for a little walk, and there's the regular people that I see, you know, just that I've met them through just walking down at the dog park. And we have really nice conversations, and, you know, I learn about their life and they learn about mine, and I look forward to seeing, you know, they're just nice friends. And I'm like, you know what, I actually wouldn't give this up.
Yeah.
Because it's really lovely to be part of a community, I suppose, and find that.
Yeah, when I said you're literally goals, like I can't wait to work a 40.
I know.
I'm able to, like, I'll definitely take that option.
Yeah. But I think, and maybe that's one of the things that I wish people had told me. Like, you don't have to. You got to do what works for you, right? Like, if you, and it sounds very similar. Like, I feel like I struggled. I can't see myself working full time forever. And I think it's okay to, you know, especially our generation, it's okay to take a break, or, you know, as long as you can afford. I mean, yeah, it's easy for me to say because I'm quite, you know, privileged, and I can afford to work 4-day weeks. But, you know, I think if you feel like you need more time to yourself and to do the things you love, then it's just a conversation you need to have with.
For the weeks to do more podcasting.
Yeah. Or even just a small reduction in hours. Like, I you know, Engeny is a 40-hour work week, and I was averaging around 36 just because I started later. And that's one of the impacts I guess soccer's had, is that, you know, I train 2 nights a week. We might run in those training sessions anywhere between like 5 kilometres or more. In games, we average like 10 to 12 kilometres running. So I'm pooped afterwards. And so, but, you know, because their training's in the evenings and I don't get home until 9, I'm not eating beforehand because I'd probably throw up. You know, I eat, and then by the time I've had a chance to just rot in front of the TV, it's like 10:30, 11. And then, trying to force myself to get up at 6:30 a.m. or 6 or even earlier to
make it to work. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, and I don't know, but I used to be a morning person because I spent quite a lot of time on site, but now I'm definitely a night owl. And there's this weird like negativity around people who are night owls. So I still struggle with that. Like, especially when I come into the office late, I'm like, oh, everyone's going to be like, good afternoon, or you know, they're going to think that I'm lazy, or So but again, it's those smaller moments in my mornings that are very slow that I think, you know, I like this. This is how I like to live my life. It's the small moments that count.
We'll go into the wrap-up questions. If you're smashing out a report, what's your coffee order?
My coffee order?
Yeah.
I usually get an oat flat white.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't tried oat. I'm not
Haven't you?
soy.
Oh, I haven't had soy in a while. I've been told to try almond milk.
Yeah, I haven't tried that.
Yeah, neither. But I started drinking oat milk to get off dairy when my skin went bad. Apparently it's good.
A couple of days someone told me, oh, they think soy lattes shouldn't exist because that's not like real milk. I'm like, that's the point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
I did think about this one. And I say it to myself, and I tell people I say it to myself almost every week, or sometimes even every day. when I started at the department, when another principal came in at the department, he told me, the work is easy, the people are hard. And I think that's so true. Yeah. The work is easy, but dealing with people, whether it be colleagues, people external to the work you're doing, that's definitely one thing that rings in my head often. And then also, you can't be what you can't see. Yeah. I love that one.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. Thank you for coming to the podcast, by the way, because I've been thinking about sending out invites. And I'm like, well, I haven't hosted any people who are not Black. So I don't know how it's going to look. And I'm like, oh, thank you for coming on, because now I can send out the invitations and it won't feel like, I only have
I felt so boring. I was like, I've just lived in Brisbane. Like, I haven't really faced any adversity. But... Yeah. And I'm so white.
I think there's always something to learn from everyone, right? And that's just because when I was like, okay, I really need to get this podcast going, I was in Uganda and I had taken leave for a couple of months, and so I was like, I'm just going to record out as much as I can, and then when I'm back, then I'll record as much as I can. And yeah, it was just, but I was like, oh, it's not looking good for diversity.
Isn't it funny that now I'm the diverse one? That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's funny, Mercy, I mean, this might be more of a closing comment, but, I remember seeing your resume at the department and interviewing you there, and I thought, I love, this person's perfect. And I could tell you were really well spoken. You're really great at what you did. I think you were you were part of all these like uni.
That always stood out for people.
Yeah, and I'm like, wow, I wish I was like her when I was at uni. Damn.
I keep telling people, and this is not like just to be like, oh my god, Engeny is such a great place to work at. But I've never felt more supported in my career. And I was telling Oli the other day, like, I feel like I'm surrounded by such intelligent, people who are willing to always help you and encourage you to ask questions. And I'm like, this is so good, because it's so different from what I experienced before. It was just more of, get this done, figure it out.
Say yes.
Not good enough. That's not good enough. Do it again.
Yeah.
So it's been an interesting learning experience, and also just to be like, oh yeah, places like this exist. You can enjoy the workplace and the people you work with and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's see, what's an engineering challenge that you think will define the next decade?
I did think about this too. I can give you like an example that's relevant to us and the work we do, and I think that's how we mine the resources needed to sustain the energy transition. How we do that in a sustainable and environmentally friendly way. And I wish I had more time to like read and become well versed and articulate in this kind of area, but Australia is really well positioned to offer something that's an ethical product, in terms of we can tell you the workforce that mines this, and we can tell you what regulations are in place in terms of environmental protection to get this resource or these minerals and metals for batteries and all that kind of jazz. So I think that's going to be a really big challenge, and it becomes more expensive. The problem with that in Australia is that it becomes more expensive for companies to invest and a little less desirable. But if we could make this ethical, this whole holistic view of mining desirable and put a value on that, then I think that'll be really exciting. And then after attending the Life of Mine conference, there was a lot of talk about AI and its use. And I think it'll be really challenging. So, an example outside of our field of work, I think, is, how do we ensure that, future engineers retain or develop their critical thinking skills and their problem solving and problem finding ability in the age of AI. I did a lot of social sciences when I was at school and learned how to research and corroborate my evidence and all that stuff and reference. And I'm still a stickler for that sometimes because I'm like, where'd you get this piece of information? Like, who's saying this? Like, and yeah, if we can't, it's really hard to do that with AI, and it's really hard for someone to pick up. It could be really hard for someone to pick up that AI has been used. I think it's a great tool and it can have real strengths, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
The mining thing makes me think of life cycle assessments and how sometimes the things that we think are sustainable may not actually be sustainable in the long run. I do think that AI, I don't know, I don't feel very threatened. Not to say that, I know all this stuff and I like that it helps you kind of have a fast pass at something.
Yes.
But at least as of now and the way we use it, when you put things in, you do realize that maybe this is a bit more off or something. Yeah, anyway, it's probably going to get better. But
yeah,
I mean, I don't necessarily feel like we're not going to have a job.
No, and I don't think, and people like you or I are probably skilled at using it and are using it for the right ways. But I guess I worry about the next generation, how they'll use it, and whether they'll lose that ability to challenge things or question things or understand what they're actually using it for, and even the way they ask questions of it. It'll be interesting.
Let's see. What's your favorite way to unwind after a long day?
I usually come home and I like to go for a walk. I like to leave my phone at home when I go for the walk, which kind of makes me paranoid because I'm like, what if I come across an injured bird and I need to call someone or like someone's dog or but it's usually fine. So I leave the phone at home, take Stevie for a walk, cook myself a nice dinner, and then rot on the couch until I feel like I need to go to sleep. And then I just read my Kindle in bed until I drop it on my face. And then I realise that I need to go to sleep.
And then what's a recent book that you really enjoyed?
A recent book that I've dropped on my face? I'm currently reading Why We Sleep, which is making me paranoid about getting more sleep or, good sleep hygiene. But I actually read Dopamine Nation, by Anna Lemke, I think. And she talks about the rise of mental health issues and in a world of abundance, and how she is a psychologist and she uses a lot of her clinical examples of people with quite heavy addictions, whether that be drugs or something else. But she explains what happens in the brain when we're addicted to something, and the balance between getting a hit of dopamine from something you enjoy doing versus not having that. And I think it's just really interesting. It's really good insight.
I do think about addiction a lot, so that's interesting. Just good addictions versus bad addictions. If I'm going to the gym every day, is that the same thing with someone who is smoking crack? Okay, probably not. Yeah, it's interesting. That's interesting. I might actually read that.
Yeah, and even just phone addiction.
And let's see. And finally, what advice would you give to someone that's feeling engineering seems very intimidating, or that's thinking about engineering in general? What would you say to them?
I think whenever I tell people that I'm an engineer, they're like, "Whoa, wow, you must be so smart."
You are so smart.
I love the compliment's great, right? Yeah. And I'd be lying if I said I'm not thinking, oh yes, I am quite smart. But no, I don't think you have to be as smart as what people think. And again, going back to my application, winning me the scholarship to QT is, being a well-rounded person is probably more important in my eyes. And you can teach skills, you can't teach attitude. And it's not a boys' club anymore. But that's what was told to me when I was starting out, was that you don't have to wear high vis and boots and what have you. I wish I could wear them every day, because then I wouldn't have to decide what to wear. But it's not a boys' club anymore. There's plenty of women, and you don't have to be super smart. You just have to apply yourself. A lot of people go and do applied science, but I'm like, if it is an engineering applied science, you're actually applying. So that's the advice. Don't doubt yourself, and don't think that everyone's Einstein doing engineering, because I certainly wasn't. I almost failed my last subject in my last semester. Doing geomorphology, actually.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about doing more or studying more in geomorph.
Yeah. No, it was great. I think it was more, I loved the subject. It was a geology, it was part of an elective that I did as part of my environmental portion of my degree. But it was learning how land systems form and all that kind of stuff. And it was stuff that I was doing at work at the time. I was mapping like paleo channels in areas where we were trying to build things, and I thought, I'll nail this, but I got like 49%. But I think it was because my assignment went over the page limit. And I didn't know they were so strict with the page limit in the environmental sciences department.
I keep joking that some of the stuff that I didn't do so well in undergrad is the stuff that I do almost every day, like hydrology and fluid mechanics.
Oh yeah, anything that moves.
So it's that's so true. Thank you so much for coming and bringing Stevie.
Thank you. Now she's finally calmed down.
It's been such a pleasure, and I'm hoping I'll see you again on this podcast.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
We've got so much to talk about, so that's good. Thank you so much for coming. And until next time, thank you. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye.